I'm Ryan Reagan with Alaska Department of Fish and Game Division of Sport Fish. In this video we're going to tie a cotton candy flesh fly. This is a take on what we're going to call a more traditional version of the cotton candy flesh fly. You can see I've got the fly here in front of me. It's a very simple fly to tie, and it's extremely effective to use in the fall months when salmon are decaying in the rivers, and it's also really good to use in spring after ice has come off of the rivers and you're back fishing again. Again, super simple fly to tie. It's basically comprised of two materials, chenille and egg yarn. So we're going to show you what materials you're going to need to tie this fly before we get going. For our hook, we're going to choose a size 6. This happens to be an XL, which means it's got a little bit of a longer shank on it. You can tie these in size 4 as well. The second material we're going to use is a barred chenille. Again, this is something that you can use based on how creative you want to become with this fly. You can use a solid color chenille, pink, orange. I would stay with those, potentially even white. We're just happening, I like this color, this pink and white barred chenille, just gives a nice color to it. And last material is egg yarn. This is white egg yarn. That's widely available at most fly tying or even bait and tackle stores. You could probably find some egg yarn if you can't find it in your local, check online. Last thing is a solid thread. This happens to be 210 denier in a shrimp pink. I've got a pair of scissors and a whip finisher and a nice steady vise, and we're ready to tie this fly. All right, we're going to apply a thread base here to our hook. I'm just going to come back here, wrap back toward the bend of the hook, and trim off my excess. The first material we're going to start with here is the egg yarn. Now we're going to use the rule of 1/3, which basically means we're not going to exceed in the length of the material using on the tail, which would be roughly 1/3 of the fly. So we're just going to eyeball it, and I think roughly about that much material is going to be good to use around the back. So we'll just tie this guy in here. Now, as we're tying this material in, we're just kind of coming forward, securing that material. We're going to come back on behind with a couple of wraps. This is just going to kind of keep that tail from swinging over and potentially getting wrapped up on the point of the hook. And once we've got this in, we can go ahead and trim the excess out. Going to cover this. I'm going to wrap back just a little bit more. So you can see here we're going to trim that tail up a little bit too. That way we don't have any stragglers. And that's the tail. The second piece of material we're going to add in is going to be the chenille. We're going to simply just put the end of the chenille down here just on the shank of the hook and wrap it in, coming back to where our thread base was. We're going to take our thread and wrap forward toward the eye of the hook. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of a gap between the eye of the hook and where my thread base ends. And I'm simply going to take that chenille and do adjacent wraps all forward. And when I get to the eye, I'm going to do a couple loose wraps over there just to secure it. Once I've reached the eye of the hook, I'm simply going to pull the chenille back slightly and build a small head there. Take my scissors, cut close to the base where the chenille meets the shank of the hook, trim it up a little bit. Now, this is going to be a slight variation on the traditional cotton candy pattern, which I'll call it the more traditional pattern would simply have a chunk of the egg yarn tied directly to the hook, and it would be hanging just over the shank of the hook, simply tied in like that. This version, we've decided to do things a little bit differently here. So we're going to make sure that our material we're using here with the egg yarn essentially the ends of it just before the end of the tail there. So you can see I'm leaving just a little bit of a slight variation there. I'm just pinching that just to get a rough idea. I'm going to come in here, switch hands. Before we move on to tying in the egg yarn here that we've got, what we've done here is we've cut off a strip, and we're basically looking at the extent of what we're going to call the body here, which is basically the chenille wrapped in there. And we've taken our egg yarn and we've sparsed it out a little bit. Now this is going to do a couple of things here for us. We're going to put that on the shank of the hook here, and as you can see, it's just going to naturally want to fold all the way around the body of the fly. So you're basically using both hands at this time, and you're just sort of securing that material in there. So when it looks good, you can kind of look around here, see if you've maybe missed some spots here. You're going to basically work the material around the body of the fly. Once you get it to a point where you like it and all the ends are generally closer to the eye of the hook, you're simply going to wrap your material in with a couple of loose wraps, and you're going to work any excess material in that falls away. If you get anything up here on the top past the eye of the hook, you can come in there and trim it off, or simply just take your thumb and forefinger and pull it back and wrap down on itself. The main thing you're going to end up with here is a small thread base for a head. When this fly gets wet, the material is sparsed out enough, which will allow the color of the body to really come through there. So when this gets wet and it's in the water, it looks like just a great fly. At this point, we're basically done. We're just going to go ahead and apply a whip finish to this fly. And we're, at this point, if we wanted to put some head cement or super glue to further strengthen the durability of this fly, we could certainly do that. But at this point, we're ready to fish this fly. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the water.